control flow statements are statements that alter the order in which statements are executed. So, and which lines of code are executed. So we've seen these before in C, and these are common to every language. We're going to look at the if statement, if then else, for loops, and while loops. So let's start with the if statement, and this is pretty generic right here. The template you can see up above. If a condition is true, colon, you do some code. That indented code block, that's all the code that you want to do, you make sure it's indented, right, so that the if statement, so the interpreter can tell that it's supposed to be executed when the condition is true. And then after the if statement is done, you have non-indented code, and that whatever non-indented code you have, that signifies that the if statement is done. So for instance, example, if temp is greater than 80, it'll print if it is hot. Then it'll print goodbye. So even if the temp isn't greater than 80, it'll still print goodbye, because the print goodbye is indented the same as the if, which tells you, okay, the if statement is finished, right? The print is not, that second print goodbye is not part of the if statement. It ends the if statement is over before it. So the indentation, again, is key here. And it is hot is printed if it's over 80. So this is an if statement. You've seen this type of thing before. If-else statements. This is a very similar thing, if condition, but you add an else. Now you have else colon, and you have another statement or set of statements. So in this case, I'm using a single statement in each pass. If temp is greater than 80, print hot, else print not hot. Notice the print hot is indented, the print not hot is indented. The print hot is indented under the if, the print not hot is indented under the else. And then print goodbye, it's not indented, so it means that the if statement is done, and it happens regardless of the condition. For loops. So these are iterative loops. We've seen these before. One difference about for loops inside Python is that these for loops, and while loops too, these loops iterate through sequences. Okay? Now, sequences, typically a string is a sequence of characters, right? A list is a sequence of items of any type. So a for loop or a while loop is going to iterate through not a while loop, just a for loop. A for loop iterates through some sequence. So in this case, we're using a string. Name equals Ian, I-A-N, 3 letters. It's a 3-letter string, 3-letter sequence. So for car in name, colon, print car. So it's going to iterate every pass through. It'll go through 3 passes, right? Because there are 3 characters inside Ian. And each pass through, it'll take that variable for car in name, it'll take that car and bind it to one character in the name. So the first pass through car will be I. The next pass through car will be A. The next pass through it'll be N. So, and then since it's printing car each time, what you get printed out is I and then A and then N. So that's how a for loop works. A for loop actually iterates through some sequence, which could be a string or could be a list. There are a few other types of sequences, but those are the main ones that we're going to focus on, strings or lists. In this case, a string. And notice that each pass through the loop, it is binding the variable, car in this case, to an element, to one element inside the sequence. Another for example. So in this example, a similar thing. This time we've got a list of 3 names, 3 strings, Joy, Mary, Pete. So name in Joy, Mary, Pete. So every time you run through this, every pass through, name is going to be one of these names. So the first time through, name is going to be Joy. Next time through, it'll be Mary. Next time through, it'll be Pete. So if we print the names, it just prints John. I'm sorry, I can't read. John, Mary, Pete. So it prints out John, and then Mary, and then Pete. And any sequence. So in this case, it's a list instead of a string that we had in the last slide, but strings and lists are both sequences. And all code in the loop needs to be indented. So in this case, we just have one statement, the print statement, that we've indented, but you could have as many lines of code as you want. So a while loop is different than a for loop. It doesn't iterate through a sequence. Instead, a while loop just checks a condition at the top. It iterates until that condition is not true. So if we look at our while loop here, while I is less than 3, that means that it's going to execute all the statements in this loop until I is no longer less than 3. It'll keep doing that over and over and over again. If I is always less than 3, I never changes, then this would be an infinite loop, right? But in our loop, if we look at our loop, it contains 2 statements. First, print I. Next, I equals I plus 1. So it's always changing I, which is the way you'd want to loop, right? You want whatever the condition is to change periodically, or else you'll never get out of the loop. So this loop, notice that before the while loop, I say I equals 0. So I set I equal to 0, and then while I less than 3, it prints I, and then increments I. And so what you're going to get printed out is a 0, 1, 2, and then it'll end. Because as soon as I hits 3, then when it gets to the top of the loop and checks is I less than 3, it'll say, no, that's false. It'll jump out of the while loop, and that'll be the end of that. Thank you.